Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we sift through, stacks of sources, articles, fresh research, and pull out the absolute must-know insights tailored just for you. Today, our mission is diving into White Sky Hospitality's latest weekly list, 5 stories in hotel and travel distribution that really stood out this week. We know you're busy hoteliers, so staying sharp without drowning in info is key. That's really the value of this weekly digest they put out. We're going to cover quite a range today, everything from, TV fame maybe not being the best thing for tourism, to AI breakthroughs, big global tourism plays, and even how digital rules can impact your business. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That's the value, right? In hospitality, things move so fast. These curated insights, they're not just headlines. They're more like strategic intel. It's a shortcut, really, to understanding what matters now. So you can react, adapt, make sense of all the noise, and get right to what's critical for you.
Absolutely. Speaking of things catching our eye, this first story, wow, it's called the White Lotus effect, when TV fame goes wrong for tourism. You'd think, a massive hit show putting a destination on the map globally. That's the dream ticket, isn't it? But it seems like even that kind of spotlight can, create some unexpected problems.
It really is a fascinating case study, almost a textbook example of a golden opportunity maybe being mishandled. So Taormina, that beautiful Sicilian spot from the White Lotus, they saw this absolutely huge booking surge during filming, like 500%. Just to put that in perspective, Rome, which is always popular, saw maybe a 50% bump in the same time frame.
100%, wow.
Huge numbers. And the immediate reaction from local hotels, prices shot up. They basically doubled the average rate. Went from around $281 to almost $470.
Okay, those numbers are pretty stark. But, isn't it natural for a place, especially a smaller one, to want to capitalize on that sudden demand? What could they have done differently, realistically, to make it last?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where the lesson really lies. Because after the show actually aired, those sky-high rates just plummeted down to like $86. And by this year, 2024, bookings were pretty much back to where they were before the show even existed. The real issue here wasn't just, short-term greed, though there was that. It was the failure to turn that temporary buzz into something lasting, into real brand value. A lot of hotels just saw it as a quick cash grab, not a chance to build this premium image. Now, some brands, like the Four Seasons featured in the show, they get it. They marketed brilliantly through that entertainment exposure. But the destination as a whole maybe didn't quite seize the chance to build a sustainable, high-value reputation. So what's fascinating here is this serves as a perfect case study for you, especially if you're a hotelier, maybe in an up-and-coming place like Koh Samui. It shows how crucial it is to avoid that short-term trap and really focus on fostering long-term sustainable demand.
That is a powerful lesson. Play the long game. All right. Okay, so from the sort of raw economics of the White Lotus effect, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about something more fundamental, how we even define luxury and hospitality now. Our second story looks at this really interesting shift in luxury, moving beyond just, more stuff, more abundance, towards a different kind of philosophy. So what does this new idea of luxury and connection actually mean for hotels on the ground?
Yeah, this trend is really about moving beyond just the standard procedures, the SOPs, to focus on what actually connects with guests today. We're seeing brands like Commonwealth Wipulicorn's KAIA.
Yeah.
They're redefining luxury not through just fancy things, but through genuine relationships and creating space for real reconnection. And then you've got Howard Ho's Section L brand. They're targeting digital nomads, which is a huge market, with this philosophy of hotels without strangers, actively trying to build community.
So it's less about, say, the thread count and more about the quality of the human interaction, that connection piece.
Exactly. That's the core for both these examples. They talk about trust as currency. They get that guests today want more than just 4 walls. They're looking for genuine experiences, a sense of belonging maybe. And technology. They use it, sure, but it's often what you might call invisible tech. It's there to enhance the human connection, not replace it. The big challenge for them, though, is how do you scale that? How do you keep that authenticity and personal touch across multiple hotels without watering down the brand? So this raises an important question for your hotel. How can you build those real relationships, foster that community connection, knowing that maybe trust is the most valuable currency you have now?
That's a really interesting challenge, scaling authenticity. Okay, speaking of new approaches, let's get into the tech side. AI, we hear so much about AI booking flights, the basic stuff. But this next story suggests AI is moving way beyond that, especially in business travel. It's not just about simple tasks anymore.
No, definitely not. The conversation around AI in business travel is finally maturing past just booking assistance. Now we're seeing a real push towards using AI for program management, optimization. Companies like HRS, for example, they're using AI to help travel managers optimize their entire hotel programs, looking at cost, yes, but also sustainability, traveler safety, all these complex factors together. It's about using data to make smarter decisions on a massive scale, giving insights that were frankly impossible before.
That sounds like a huge step up. But I imagine getting corporations, especially big ones, to adopt this, there must be big hurdles. You mentioned a 99.999% accuracy rate for security. That sounds incredibly high.
Oh, it is. You've hit on a key point there. The security demands alone are immense. It used to be maybe a simple two-page questionnaire for a new tech tool. Now, it's these comprehensive assessments demanding, like you said, almost perfect accuracy. 6 nines. Achieving that is incredibly difficult, very expensive, and yes, it can definitely be a barrier, especially for smaller, innovative AI companies. And here's the crucial thing. Even with all this amazing tech, the human travel management companies, they're still vital. Absolutely essential. Think about it. When there's a major disruption, an airport shuts down, some emergency happens. The AI isn't the one sorting out the mess on the phone. You still need people for those complex, high-stress, unpredictable situations. So if we connect this to the bigger picture for your business, embracing AI isn't about replacing people. It's about understanding its role in optimization, yes, but also recognizing the really high stakes around security and accuracy when corporates get involved. It's about augmenting, not replacing.
Right, it enhances the human capability, especially for the predictable stuff, freeing people up for the chaos. That makes sense. Okay, our fourth story shifts perspective again to a global market strategy, a really ambitious plan for tourism growth. Let's look at this case study from Turkey. Quite fascinating in terms of strategic growth and digital integration.
Turkey's goal is, well, incredibly ambitious. They're aiming for 1 million Chinese tourists every year. That's a huge leap from the roughly 410,000 they had in 2024. And their strategy to get there is really comprehensive. It's multi-layered. They're doubling direct flights, for instance, up to 49 a week. And they're streamlining e-visas, getting the processing time down to just 7 days.
Okay, that's logistics side. Smart. But what about the digital piece? Chinese travelers are known for being super digitally connected, right? They like using their own platforms.
Exactly, and Turkey gets that. The digital partnerships are absolutely key to this whole plan. It's actually a masterclass in market understanding. They're integrating deeply with the major Chinese travel platforms, think Fliggy, Trip.com, and also the big payment players like Tencent and Alipay. This taps right into that shift we're seeing in Chinese travel preferences. More focus on experiences, longer stays, wanting premium accommodation, and the vision is total integration. By 2025, the plan is for Chinese tourists to book everything, flights, hotels, even their visas, all through these familiar Chinese platforms. Seamless. So what stands out here for you is just how comprehensive and digitally integrated your approach needs to be. If you want to capture a huge, evolving market like Chinese tourism, you absolutely have to meet Jess where they already are, digitally.
That really is a masterclass in strategy, knowing your customer, meeting them there. Okay, finally, let's unpack a story that hits close to home for many, I think. The real-world impact of regulations on the digital market. It seems maybe some EU regulators are kind of missing the commercial reality on the ground.
Yeah, this one really highlights that potential clash between, let's say, regulatory goals and what actually happens to businesses, especially those relying on digital channels. We're talking about the European Commission's Digital Markets Act, the DMA. The aim is to control the power of big tech platforms. Fair enough. But the way it's being enforced, particularly against Meta, reportedly treats the basic economic viability of businesses using the platform as sort of an exceptional circumstance, not as a fundamental need. The argument is that this view kind of ignores the knock-on effects, the impact on all those small EU businesses that depend on targeted advertising through these platforms to find customers. It basically cuts off a vital channel for them.
So the rules, which might be aimed at, say, Facebook or Google, end up hurting the smaller European hotels or shops who use those platforms to reach people. Unintended consequences.
Precisely. And we've seen some pretty stark examples, similar DMA enforcement actions against Google's hotel search feature. Reports suggest that led to something like a 30% drop in direct bookings for European hotels. 30%, that's huge.
Yeah.
And who tends to benefit when direct bookings fall like that? Well, often it's the big American OTAs, right? Like Booking.com and Expedia, they have the scale, the resources. Maybe they're less reliant on those specific Google features that got changed. So this definitely raises a crucial question for your business. How do these big regulatory shifts, even ones happening far away, potentially impact your distribution strategy? What does it mean for how much you rely on getting direct bookings through big platforms versus leaning on the OTAs?
We've really covered a lot of ground today. Some incredibly varied but Really insightful stories, all from that White Sky Hospitality Weekly list. We went from the White Lotus effect and that lesson about short-term thinking to how luxury and connection are being redefined. Then the practical realities and high stakes of AI in business travel, Turkey's super integrated plan for Chinese tourism, and finally, how digital regulations can have very real, sometimes unexpected impacts on your bookings.
Absolutely. And if you boil it down, the big themes really come together, don't they? It's about striking that balance, short-term wins versus long-term health. It's about understanding that hospitality itself, that human connection piece, is evolving, recognizing the real-world challenges and opportunities of adopting advanced tech, seeing the power of smart, strategic digital integration, especially for global markets, and maybe most importantly right now, staying aware of how regulation, even with good intentions, can reshape your distribution landscape, sometimes in ways you didn't see coming.
So, as you navigate this constantly changing world of hospitality, maybe the question to ask is, which of these trends we talked about today is going to hit your strategy the hardest in the next year or so? How will you use these kinds of insights to sidestep the pitfalls, grab the opportunities, and make sure your business doesn't just survive, but really thrives going forward? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive